Yeah, please try it again. It's glitched. Oh, my heavens. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hub Sessions. We're going to be having a conversation with Nomsam Druli from Tishala Communications. And we're going to be discussing how to pivot in the landscape of public relations across all respectful bodies, you know, how she navigated basically from being a student going into entrepreneurship. Okay, this one is different. I'll try. Our apologies for this delay. We're having technical difficulties. But you all can hear me, right? Yes, you can. I just wanna... Oh my God, where's the flash? Hello there if you're watching, or to those that are watching, depending on the time of day it is. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Hab Sessions. My name is Mudisa Mokheti, and I'm going to be facilitating our conversation today with I beg your pardon, Miss Nomsa Ndluli from Tishala Communications. I'm still adding her right now. We had a couple of technical difficulties, but I'm hoping that we win this time. I see that she is in, and I just tried to add her. Let me try doing it again. Oh, connection failed. This is what happens with the fourth industrial revolution. I mean, it's supposed to make things easier for us. At times it does, at times it will get on your neck. All right, let's try it again. Yes, approve. Okay, now what is this? On video, send request. Okay. My back. Loose. It says it's adding her. Let me just do this. Bring this one video. There we are.
Hey,
Hi, are you well?
yes, I'm good. I'm good.
After how long? Let me see. After 20 long minutes. I
20 long minutes. Let me have my tea. I'm so stressed.
am so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was just saying a couple of minutes ago that the fourth industrial revolution is supposed to make things easier for us, but here we are struggling still. At times it's convenient, sometimes it will give you an issue.
Absolutely.
How was your day? How was your Thursday?
My days are always hectic. Like,
Oh,
don't even start because then I'll start unpacking stuff.
yes. Myself and Tip were having a conversation earlier, and I told him the very same thing. I feel like I'm in my 20s, but I'm already developing a back problem. That's how hard these are. But let's not waste any time. To everyone watching, thank you very much for joining in tonight. Apologies for being late. We had technical difficulties. With me, I have Miss Nomsa Ndluli from Tishala Communications, and she is the founder and managing director of it as well. It is a boutique public relations and digital marketing agency that's based in South Africa, with their base, I think your base is in Ferndale, in Gauteng, right here in Johannesburg, right?
Yes, that's our head office. We do have a footprint in Cape Town as well.
In Cape Town as well. Talking about with you being in Johannesburg, here in Ferndale, I see that you're on Kent Avenue.
Yes, we are. That's where we're based.
Let me tell you something. You're about a walk away from where I live.
Well, we could have done it here,
Could have done it here. I was thinking of Kent Avenue. That's like down the road. I could just walk there.
Yeah.
All right. To those that do not know Miss Nomsa, let me just give them a brief introduction of who you are and what you do. Miss Nomsa is an award-winning former broadcaster seamlessly transitioned to storytelling expertise into the world of strategic communications. Since founding Tishala in 2018, she has worked with some of the most with some of the continent's most exciting brands and events, from Africa's first AI summit to international gaming expos, helping them gain visibility, shape narratives, and connect meaningfully with their audiences. Am I accurate with that?
Sort of.
All right.
Yeah, you've touched on a bit.
Okay. Okay. Because
Mm.
I don't like lying and I don't like misinformation because I know how far that, could put one in. And I also get that you are obviously before you became an entrepreneur, you were in varsity and you have an education, and from that you were able to have or receive a master's degree in mass communications.
That's correct.
Take me back to your varsity days just a little bit. Um, you know, but before we get into that, I understand that you've come a long way to becoming the CEO of Tishala Communications. You are also an award-winning broadcaster.
Hmm. Yeah.
My Tell
Goodness.
us a little bit about your career immediately after varsity. Did you start working while you were in varsity, or did you start working after varsity? And then obviously you got into journalism before you got into, being an entrepreneur. Tell us about how you pivoted throughout all of that to getting to where you are right now.
Yeah, it's actually been a long journey for me. So I, straight after matric, I had to work because I think when I was doing grade nine,
Mm.
I lost my mother.
So
So
sorry.
obviously you then find yourself in a single parent household. So I actually had to work, and I started my very first job as a 19-year-old was at the SAPS as an admin clerk. So I became an admin clerk and I became a PA while furthering my education. So I don't have a campus experience because I studied through correspondence via UNISA. So I did my undergrad and my honors degree through UNISA while working. So I've only started while working. So I, yeah, worked for SAPS for a couple of years, and then I then moved to Cape Town where I worked for um National Union of Mine Workers in Nahau as a researcher.
Right.
And while I was playing those roles, I then started volunteering after work at a community radio station.
Mhm.
And after a while, something in me said, listen, you need to take that leap of faith. So I decided at the end, I think it was the end of 2008 or 2001, that I'm actually going to quit my job and actually start looking for work in the media. But at the same time, I was equipping myself with those skills. So what I would do is after work, after my regular job, I would then go to Fine Music Radio. It was Fine Music Radio in Cape Town. It's still based at the Artscape. And I would go then read the 5 o'clock news. So I quickly honed those skills. And it so happened that somebody also linked me with the editor of Eyewitness News then in Cape Town, Janine Vellemans. So actually, what I would do is before work, I would go and job shadow her at the Prime Media offices, go to my regular job after work, and then I would go and volunteer my services at Fine Music Radio. And at the end of the year, I quit my regular job. I was at home for about 3 months. And then around March, I actually get a call from Prime Media. Hey, we've got a training and development slot. Would you like to try it out? I tried it out for several months, and that was KFM, which is in the Prime Media stable. I then ultimately joined the newsroom. And it's also so happened that while I was at Prime Media, I was at a Prime Media on a freelance contract. So I think after the first year or so, my contract was not renewed. And so I was left without a job. Finally got my dream job in the media, and the contract was not renewed. So I said, what is the closest thing, that I can do? to that's journalism related, and that's how. And then I got into PR. Did PR for a couple of years. Actually worked on a very exciting account called the International Jazz Festival. So I handled that Cape Town account. After a year, Prime Media calls me back, right?
Mhm.
Prime Media calls me back, continue working at Prime Media. And every time it was time for the Jazz Festival, I would also do the account for them as a side hustle, also because it was not in conflict of interest. I then moved from Cape Town back to Gauteng. I'm originally from Pretoria, and I moved to Joburg. So I moved to the Prime Media in Joburg for 702, worked for 702, and continued reporting as well. And then I think it was sometime while reading the evening news, the editor of SABC heard me read the news one evening, and then I was approached to join the SABC, and I joined the SABC in 2015. But one thing that never left is PR. I
Yeah.
always found gigs. And the nice thing about having been at the SABC is that I read the morning news, and after that I left. So, which means I had half of the day left. So, people kept referring others to me for PR. But journalism then was my first love. So I continued working at the SABC from around 2015 to around 2023, 2022, I think. 2022, yeah, 2022, Prime Media called me back as an editor, did that, and I just felt there was no longer any fulfillment. So I decided to then run my company full time. So I took that leap of faith in 2023, left the media industry altogether, and ran Tishala. And from there, it grew. So the interesting thing about my career is that it's circumstances that actually led me to where I am. Entrepreneurship was never in the plan for my life. PR was never in the plan for my life. But somehow, God had a plan, and he directed my footsteps. But I must say it's been a fulfilling journey. One of the things also that journalism space afforded me was that because I had furthered my studies as well. I also got an opportunity to then lecture part time at UJ. So that's briefly my story. It was not a perfect story, but it's led me exactly to where I'm meant to be.
Where you are today, even. And I was
Yeah.
actually going back to what you said about you being where you are is
Mm,
purely circumstantial, and because of the things that you've been through, it takes me back to what you said earlier about you having lost your mother. And I
mm.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you would have had the drive that you have now, and what drive that you had then. I don't think it's a lot of people that could say, I would go do this in the morning and then go to my 9 to 5, and then after my 9 to 5 go do something else, because I'm thinking, how many hours do you have in a day?
I think when you are in your 20s, it seems like you've got 48 hours in a day because you've got so much energy. But one thing that you're touching on, losing my mother definitely gave me that extra drive of
Yes.
winning in life, because you've got nothing else to fall back on, you
Especially
know
growing up in a household where
yeah,
I'm not sure, because we haven't touched on your parents, and I don't think I'm far, but
yeah.
I don't think fathers have that nurturing spirit, just the way mothers do, and some things they wouldn't give. So I would understand why you women would want to, do it for yourself. I feel like also having lost your mother, you kind of gained a big angel that looked over you. Because
Absolutely. And she was also lived quite an exemplary life. She was a go-getter as well. I remember my mother was a teacher. Both of my parents were teachers, and I would remember her furthering her studies, going to work, and then catching a train to go to the University of Pretoria to attend her evening classes. She was also furthering her studies. So I think And she passed away just before she graduated for her honors. And I think part of the wanting to further my studies up to a certain point, I did it for her. More especially, yeah, more especially the honors. I wanted to wear her gown. So partially I did it for her, but with pursuing my master's and now going for my PhD, that is for me. uh yeah, so she really laid that foundation, and you're correct. I don't given gift and the nurturing spirit that is really innate, and that's God given to mothers, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to now get into when you now had your first big gig, or when you saw that this company that I'm opening can actually, sustain me. Because had you been someone else, you would have been like, you know what? Because I have this gig as a journalist, I'm just going to stay here and continue doing, because there's some form of independence, and that's it. I think that's all we all yearn for, as in
Mhm.
just, independence. But at some point, you ran out of fulfillment.
Yeah.
I feel like we, sometimes I have it when the alarm rings in the morning. I just feel like, oh my God, I'm thankful for having a job, but every day, you know, because I work a 9 to 5. It's always the same chair each and every single day. Nothing's, different. You lose that mojo that one has. I feel like you also went through the same thing, and then you were like, let me do my own thing. Now, when
Mm.
you're getting into it, what's that moment in your entrepreneurship journey, especially in the beginning phase, where you were like, you know what? Things are coming together, and they're coming together very nicely.
In the beginning stage, it didn't for PR for me. In the beginning stage, it was a gift and a talent that I had that refused to go away.
Yeah.
uh you know so business kept on coming, but my focus was then on journalism. I was a newsreader. I was on a public platform. I enjoyed that.
The kind
Yeah, I think for me, when I left my job, and when I left the media space, Tishala only had two clients then, right? And 2 months after I left and ran the business full time, we lost those clients. Yeah, we lost those clients. But for me, something happened in me and said, I don't believe in failure, and I think it gave me an opportunity to recalibrate and start coming up with a vision for Tishala, because right now it was the only thing in front of me, and I started seeing potential in the business. And because you are in a very tight corner where you no longer of a full-time salary, you've got
of.
to make it work. And because now I dedicated all of my time to Tishala, 2023 was actually a year of breakthrough for us. So after the clients had left, I had time to recalibrate, think of the kind of business that I want to build. And clients started coming on. 2024 was a very good year where we had long-term clients as well. And we won two awards. We won two industry awards. We decided to enter, and we won two industry awards. We worked with some international clients. So yeah, and another difficult thing is the business found me, right? I didn't find it. And I come from a family of teachers and nurses and all of that. So entrepreneurship for me, I did not have a frame of reference. Although I knew how to do the job and clients coming back for more, as soon as money goes into the account, there's SARS, there is other compliance issues. And
Uh,
those are the things that I had to equip myself with.
mm-hmm.
Mm.
But you've done well for yourself. I should say, you've done well, and this only speaks to how far, number one, being kind to yourself will go, and also
Mm.
pressurizing yourself, not conforming to, you know what, I lost them. What am I going to do now?
Mm.
Found the
Mm.
strength within, because at the same time also you had no option but to fight, and fight hard, not
Yeah.
only for yourself but for your future generations. And I think that's the importance, or that's what happens when you build a business, especially from scratch.
Yeah, yeah. But the most important thing is that I must acknowledge, the team that I have as well. Because I stand on their shoulders as well. This success, I can't claim this success alone.
Right.
I've got a team of the Tishala force who turn up for work every day to make, and who are very passionate and creative, and want to see so credit to them as well.
All right, because I'm very much interested, in the broadcasting space, and I understand that you've been a broadcaster as well.
Mm.
Into the media landscape, what is your opinion,
Mm.
basically, on how things are going? Because I feel like for you back then, it was very important that you had, number one, grit, you had talent, you had
Mm.
um, focus, you had tenacity. What my drama teacher once taught me was that talent will give you 50%, and then beyond 50%
Mm.
is the effort that you put in. Considering how we have people that are basically influencers with larger following, with not that much talent, taking up space in the broadcasting realm, in the acting realm, for example, basically in professional media, as some people would call it. I mean, what is your view on that?
Yeah, when I left the media space, I was quite disheartened because, firstly, things are not the way that they were when I first started. I think number one, I worked more in the newsroom, and newsrooms were well resourced. Also, in terms of senior staff to give that support, obviously we were paid better as well. And the thing is, we were also not competing. There weren't podcasts then. But there weren't podcasts then. I think newsrooms and even the media space are having quite a huge challenge on different fronts. Number one, COVID, as it hit industries, also hit the media industry as well. It hit a lot of companies, and as a result, advertising revenue fell. So a lot of companies are building themselves up. And as you know, most media companies make the bulk of their revenue from advertising. So that impacted them as that also meant that you lost a senior talent. So what I found is that you then get young people that are not well supported. And when you're not well supported and you don't have, people with the historical background and the legacy, also the quality of the news as well, it diminishes, right? But then you also have the entry of, people now being able to um make their own content and publish it, and which is good. It gives credence to a plurality of voices. It gives credence to witnessing other talent as well. But the problem with those mediums is that you get a lot of disinformation and misinformation as well, because those platforms are not regulated. So for example, when I was on radio and broadcasting, you had to double check the facts,
Yeah,
because you understood your responsibility, the responsibility that you had on that platform, but also because you could be in trouble with the BCCSA as well.
correct.
You
Because
could, mm,
when if you are a news reader, and we are reading, we're watching you read the news to us, it's not going to be about necessarily what Nomsa said. It's
Yeah,
going to be at X room or X news platform told the people. You
yeah,
know, that big responsibility as well, that you're not only representing yourself over here, but it's also this very big corporation that
yeah.
you destroy. So it's very important for you to, number one, think of your reputation, the
Mm,
reputation of the company, but also put into effect the teachings that you've had from either varsity. You said you learned from correspondence, the
mm,
education got off of that, as well as the education that you have as a
mm,
professional
mm,
learning
mm.
corporation as well.
Yeah. So the skill, the journalism skill, the storytelling skills, it's a skill you hone over time. And
True.
we were not just given the mic. You had to learn certain things. You had to learn how to write a story, how to cut sound, the right questions to ask, what makes a story newsworthy. So every morning in a diary meeting, you would come and present a story and you would be asked, why do you think that story is important? So quality and credibility were a very, very big thing. So every time, you know, when one other on 702 or on SABC, when we go with a story, it's well researched. We try to the best of our ability to find the facts. In fact, sometimes we would not go on air with a story until you establish the facts.
Yes.
So, that's how the kind of journalism we were taught. And unfortunately now, although podcasts have their pros and cons, that they are establishing, giving people other platforms, but the fact that people listen to them and some people absorb that information, and yet there's no regulation, and sometimes there's no credibility. Somebody can easily come on and say, Nomsa is a murderer, and people will sit around and laugh. Yes, I can take legal steps against them, but in terms of regulating that particular industry, they're not. And so there's that freedom of expression without any responsibility.
That's true.
Mm.
That's very true. With that being said, I understand that speaking about regulatory bodies, um, back to you as an entrepreneur, you
Mm.
know, understand, learn from you. Um, I understand that you've created a lot of PR campaigns and PR plans for a plural of companies. Do you know, how do you go about crafting an effective PR campaign? Because just to tell you my thing, I have a degree in public relations, right? So with me having my degree in public relations, I always look into the originality of the company, where the company comes from. I like doing that, research. And then when I make a plan, I make a plan off of, oh, so you named your company after your dad. What about your dad, fascinates you? What about your father, made you, influenced you to making it about him, and then I make it speak somehow to what your father represents, and that is keeping it, original to the company,
Mm.
that how I do it. But I'd like to learn from you as a professional and as a director and
Mm.
founder of a company, what goes into making a successful PR campaign?
The PR, PR and journalism has been a base for me. A successful PR campaign, its premise is, on firstly, is it timely? Is the timing right? Secondly, what is the story, and will the story resonate with your target audience?
Yes.
Right. So part of what journalism has taught me is that then I've been able to find those gems in my client story that would make their target audience resonate with. For example, I'm just trying to. We've got a tech client
All
who
right.
gives AI driven solutions to businesses,
Okay.
right? But then just before the election, so our client basically is able to detect like deep fake fraud and other fraudulent activities using AI solutions. So because they're experts in that field, we then decided just before the elections that we are going to do a campaign on AI and deep fake fraud during the elections. So what happens now? I don't know. Let me just try and explain deep fake. I'm sure you've seen videos of people where they now take Nomsa's face,
Yeah.
impersonate her voice, and
Looks like
make it sound to say something that she really didn't say. Yes, using AI. So that's deep fake fraud because it's then done for fraudulent activities. Now, during elections, you also found that to be on the increase. For example, somebody would maybe put on, take Malema's image and his voice and twist him to say things that he never said to influence the election. That, for example, to maybe make him lose credibility and all of that. So we then, firstly, it was timely because it was elections. A lot of also campaigning has gone online, right? There is now AI in the mix. So do you see how timely that campaign was? So it was well
what?
received.
Sorry, just to make sure that I understand, you're saying it should speak to what is happening in that moment. So if we're talking about it being election period, we can also witness deep fake fraud happening for politicians. So if we're going to have a campaign for our tech client that does AI solutions, we can speak on deep fake fraud that is caused by AI for our tech company, that is our client, during this time, which is the elections. Is that what this is?
It is. And obviously, your client has to be a credible source
Okay.
of information. So we kind of said, what is the period that we're in? It's election season. And with the work that our client was doing, how can we
Make it benefit.
uh, add to the narrative, right? So we can add to the narrative by then launching a public awareness campaign on how people can easily detect deepfake fraud during election time so that they are not misled, right?
Okay.
And we've got another client who's a biomedical scientist. We work with her. So she's a skin specialist, if I can put it that way. We also did a very beautiful campaign with her in October. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, right? That's also where timing it takes place. So when the timing is correct, then it's also easy to receive the messaging because that topic is also trending. But we did something very different. Okay, normally breast cancer or cancer has to do with oncology, but we said, how can we then come up with a narrative, add to the narrative? So our client is a skin specialist, and so we did a campaign on educating women who are going through chemo to take care of their skin, because what
Oh,
chemo does is that it burns your skin. Yes. So we did a different beauty campaign and saying, while women have to take chemo to fight the cancer cells, at the same time their appearance changes, right? So we can help them balance that out. So we did a beauty campaign, and she was just giving advice on how your skin changes during chemo. When you go to your different and you go and buy your skin cosmetics, what are the ingredients that you must look for, and things
right.
like that. And I remember when we did that campaign, it was the very same weekend. A lot was happening. There were these COSATU conferences. I also remember that it was the same weekend where Ray Macaulay passed away, the pastor Ray Macaulay. But that story trended on the top 5 of the stories on ENCA for 24 hours.
That's beautiful. That's
because
the ability.
it was a unique, so going into a PR plan or a concept, is it unique, is
Okay,
it timely?
sorry. Because I want to make sure that I understand and I heard you very well, and I want you to, like, take it like a rubric, you know,
Yeah,
that I've been listening to you and I hear what you're saying. Number,
yeah.
we spoke about resonation.
Resonance, yeah. Does it resonate with
Yeah,
people?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We spoke on the period it's happening, time.
and
So is
and
it?
go and also going back to resonance, a lot of times when to also test whether a story will resonate is if you've gone through the same experience, or even people around you have gone through the same experience. One thing that helped me to know that this will resonate is my aunt died from breast cancer, right? And I remember her going through, I didn't know that her skin darkening was due to chemotherapy. But I used to buy this woman tissue oil. What it was, tissue oil. So, when we came up with this concept, I knew that a lot of women who have breast cancer, or even their families and caregivers, will resonate with this. So resonance, ne, can come up by noticing uh, people around you, what resonates with them, their struggles, their experiences. It can even be personal,
Yeah,
right? A personal experience. Secondly, um, is this unique? You know, you don't want to do the very same thing that every person does. No, normally when we talk about breast cancer, and yes, those things are important. We would talk about mammograms, having tests, preventative measures, which is very good. We would then talk about
it's how to self-examine.
yes, those so preventative would also go through the journey of going through, chemo and that. But we never talk about the aspect that even when I'm fighting the disease as a woman and losing my breasts, I still want to feel feminine,
Yes,
right? So you see the uniqueness then of this one. So we adding a, now a different and unique layer that has been overlooked, right? Secondly, it was a timely campaign. Although I think this campaign would do very well at any time of the year, but the fact that now the conversation is around breast cancer awareness makes the timing also quite perfect as well. So the time, you've got to read the room. They always say read the room.
I
you
get it.
know so those things are important. The messaging, the timing. Thirdly, we are not just having any nomsa come in and give that advice. We are then the credibility of the source, and
Yes,
the credibility of the source here was a biomedical scientist who's also a specialist in, creating kind of skin, what do you call it, products, because
yes.
she's got her own product line as well. So resonance,
Time,
timing, the
unique,
uniqueness of your messaging, and the source as well, the credibility of the source.
which leads us to the results that we want, because also then, because we want to retain this client, it's very important that in us retaining, for us to retain this client has to be successful. That is when we also sell their skin products.
Absolutely, yeah.
I get it. I'm learning.
That's good. That's good.
To those that are watching, I hope you're taking notes. I'm sure we have a lot of public relations students from Laval University of Technology and also everywhere around South Africa. So if you're still tuned in or if you just got in, welcome. I'm speaking to Ms. Nomsa Mdluli from Tishala Communications. And my next question for you is, how can these PR initiatives be made to have a lasting effect? Or let's use what we were speaking about now.
Hmm.
um, how do we then mark, or how do we then see, or what is our indicator that this has, that our campaign or event has had a lasting effect on, number one, the people that it was intended for, meaning the breast cancer survivors, the media that has been involved, maybe the drive that we see on the social media streets, or also on television, because I remember you said it was spoken about for 24 hours on television, on was it ENCA?
It was ENCA. Yeah, it trended on their website for a while. So before any PR campaign, you've got to set your objectives and your goals, right? And they need to be measurable. So in order to measure the success, and it's a very important question that you are asking, what am I trying to achieve from this campaign, right? How am I going to measure that success,
Mm-mm.
right? So firstly, our objective for that campaign was to create awareness
Mm.
about the impact of chemo on the skin, and also to educate women who are going through chemo and the general public on how to take care of their skin. Right. So that was the objective. What was the goal? The goal was to reach 500,000 people using mass media,
All right.
right? What mass media? Because we only had 1 month. The client signed us on in September, late September, and we had October, so we didn't have enough time. We asked ourselves then, what mediums work best in getting a message out there quickly
And
and
to a large.
to a large audience? That was broadcasting. So we then targeted broadcast media, and then you say, okay, your target is broadcast media, but what broadcast media? Is it national, is it regional, is it community? We went for national and regional because they've got huge numbers. So we want to reach 500,000 people in 1 month, right? So you then look at those media. Broadcast will help us reach, spread the message faster, because time was not on our side. Also, it will help us, it's got those numbers that we are looking for, right?
Yeah.
And also, as something that is personal as breast cancer, you sometimes, as a listener or review, want to have the opportunity to speak to the expert. And that's sometimes where radio creates that intimacy, right? So that's one of the reasons that we did. So we set an objective. We said we wanted to reach an X number of media, right? Broadcasting. We said we wanted to reach 500,000 people. What did we do? We So because you've now set the objective, you've got to ensure that your messaging uh, educates and creates awareness.
Mhm.
So in our press release, we then said exactly what chemo does to the skin, what changes take place. It darkens the skin, people get blisters, it the skin becomes very, very sensitive.
Sometimes
And then,
I think,
sorry?
does it go off sometimes?
It does. It does. So, what ingredients do you look for when you go to the shop? Firstly, you don't scrub your skin. You don't use acidic ingredients. You use ingredients that create a lot of moisture, hydraulic acid, salicylic acid, niacinamide, and all of that. So with the objective of communicating your messaging now, is it creating awareness? Is it educating, right? So we needed to ensure that then our press release communicates those two objectives that we are trying to communicate. You then go to your target media, where you are most likely to find your target audience, right? Somehow, a breast cancer patient is watching. A lot of people consume, radio. Radio is still the most consumed medium in
Me.
Africa, right? So You go on to, popular TV. So we had an interview on ENCA. We had an interview on Newsroom Africa. We were actually able to also get our client a slot on the SAFM roundtable discussion
Oh,
on breast cancer. We had Aras here, we had Kaya FM. So somewhere, somehow, someone was listening who's impacted, or Nomsa might also have a friend who's going through breast cancer and say, hey, I've downloaded something for you. Here's advice. So information spreads like that. So we're able to reach people. Okay. Now, you are now on those platforms. The questions that are being asked, are they relevant to your PR objectives? So because we've written down the messaging that we want to convey, it also means the presenter will ask the right questions. For example, the presenter will ask, what does chemo do to the skin? Right? The doctor will then answer that. How can we take care of the skin? So now the messaging, that those two PR objectives are now met, right? So, how do we then measure our goals to see that we are successful? We now have different tools in PR that we use. We use what we call media monitoring. So what media monitoring does is that it will give you the coverage, all the coverage, it monitors all the coverage. So what we do normally when we sign up to media monitoring is that we'll give them keywords, right? For example, our client is Dr. Judy Pretorius. Her brand is Biomedical Emporium. So those are their keywords. So any mentions of those two keywords, the media monitoring then picks it up. Another thing that the media monitoring gives us is the number of audience who were listening at that time, right? It gives us also what we call AVE, the advertising value equivalent. So
okay.
what AVE means, let's say, for example, you want to have an advert on SABC One for 10 minutes, for example.
My
They will
God.
tell you that it's worth 400,000 rand, right? So with our client is normally what we do, we pitch those interviews on their behalf. They give us a service fee. So AVE, what shows is that if they had to pay for the amount of time in advertising, this is how much they had to pay. When we compile our report, we also then we said, remember our target was 500,000 people, right? You then from SAFM alone hit that target.
On on Newsroom we have this match. On
Yes.
EA we
On
have
ENCA, you have this much, you have this much. So you see how the plan comes together. You have
eh,
your PR objective, or PR objective or a messaging objective. What do you want to communicate or achieve through this? Now it can come into two forms. Sometimes you find that with PR, you want to boost sales,
mhm,
right? Sometimes the objective can be you want to create awareness
and education.
and education. So sometimes these will be the two. So whatever your messaging is needs to then align with
So
that. Yes, so it needs to align with that, and you'll also have your goal, which you can measure as well, and because then you're able to go to a client or your employer as a publicist and say this um campaign was successful based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another way of measuring it, sometimes you find that maybe you are making people aware of maybe a report that you've released, right? And one of the targets that you can set is 500 downloads, of that report, or 500 downloads of that app. Let's say you're doing an awareness campaign of that app. If you've met that target, then you can say people reached the message, so it was a success. So there are a lot of ways, depending on what your your objective is, there's a lot of ways in which you can measure the success of your campaign.
One thing I feel like we touched on a little bit, but then we didn't get into, is
Yeah.
when you mentioned Ares here. I
Mm.
get that we're talking about all these media companies that will speak to Black people, that have a majority of Black people, viewers and listeners, right?
Mm.
Like
Mm.
one thing that we're also missing as far as information is, now when we put in Ares here, we
Mm.
include numbers, yes, but then now we're having another demographic of race. So
Yeah.
now diversity in sending out a message.
There is, and more especially a message like that,
Mm.
there are certain things that are just, they are universal. Breast cancer is universal. It affects women, not just Black women, not just white women.
Yes.
So you've also got to ensure that you reach your different demographics. There'll be other issues where maybe a certain demographic is mainly affected,
Yeah.
and that would be your target audience. But as some, with something just as broad as this, you need to ensure. And I'm going to give you another example as well. We, one of our clients is the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation, right? um and they are responsible for the rehabilitation of people who are addicted to gambling. In our awareness campaign, we made it very, very clear that this message that people can get help is available in all languages. So we leveraged on SABC radio stations, made sure that we got interviews there. Because the nice thing about them is that they broadcast in all, you
Language
know, of, in
11.
all languages. So we made sure that we democratize the information by ensuring that everybody gets it in their own language.
Mm, mm.
You know, so there are those problems that are very, very universal, that cut across all LSMs, right? Whether you are in a rural area or whether you are in Sandton, everybody is impacted by gambling addiction. It might happen in different forms, but it happens. For example, in your rural areas, you know, you might get amadais, bofafi, and all of that.
Those people that play with lids and they swap around like this.
Yes, that's a form. And people, you find that as soon as somebody gets a SASA payment, sometimes you find ukuthi abamashonisa have SASA cards, because a person goes and borrows from abamashonisa to gamble. You also get somebody who lives in an affluent area that has had their house repossessed because all they did was gamble.
And these same
So yeah, so you've also got to do research, is also very important into this problem. Who does it affect, right?
and who will it resonate with?
Yeah, who does it resonate with? Because as soon as you've now found your target audience, you then identify the target media where you are likely to reach that audience.
I hear you. I hear you. Because now I'm already thinking of ideas on how I could sell this. Because I'm thinking propaganda. I would show a mother and a small little child losing their home, losing their comfort because their dad wanted to, because their dad gambles it all away in
Mm.
hope. And it also starts very small and then it builds and then it builds and then it builds. Because now some people start with as little as 5 rand. Some people, they won't, now Kabelo is saying China. Some people start with as much, as small as 10 rands, 15, 20, and that 20 rands grows into 20,000, 20,000 grows to 100,000 until you lose a 2 million rand house.
Yeah, it starts very, very, very small. And one thing that I've also learned while dealing with this client is that sometimes there are um there are certain things that make you predisposed to addiction, right? Things like mental health and all of that. So there are some people who are likely to get addicted firstly because of their family background. If you have come from a family of, so there are some people who are predisposed. So normally then, if you are going to start playing around those circles, those very destructive addictions, yeah, should stay away. And also, gambling was created as a form of recreation. As soon as now
Mhm.
you look at it as a source of income, that's where danger comes, because you never know when you're going to win or if you're going to win again.
And if you do win, what is your loss? Or what is your win compared to your loss? Even is it worth it?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm learning a lot from you, and with me learning a lot from you, I get that you've also had the opportunity to have studied abroad.
Yes, so not quite. So
Let's
what happened is,
okay. Let's talk.
let's talk about that. I was given a scholarship, and we had a choice. I was given a scholarship, was supposed to move to the UK. COVID hit. So we were given a choice of whether to want to remain and do online, or go to the UK. And then Europe was being ravaged by COVID, so I didn't want to die. But I think then I weighed my options, and I said, being away from 2 years in South Africa means that when I come back, I would have to start afresh, right? Look for a job and all of that. And UNISA prepared me to study via correspondence, so that was a natural thing. So I did my MA through correspondence. I'm not doing that through PhD though. I want face to face. But yeah, so I did my MA online through a scholarship.
Okay, so now that's when the fourth industrial revolution. That's when that's how you also leveraged on the fourth industrial revolution.
Sure.
How does that experience make you view communications, and how does it make you view the media as well?
Firstly, what communication has evolved. I think 4IR has really given us different mediums to communicate. Um, I didn't start PR in the days of FX, where you used to send press releases through FX. But people who've been in the space for that long would tell you that we used to send press releases through FX. So what it has done is that it's given us quite a lot of platforms to share our clients' messaging, but also to find the media as well. I now know we send press releases via email. Some prefer journalists prefer WhatsApp. We've got an international clients, and you find that sometimes I want to connect with the media in other parts of the continent. I'm able to connect with them via LinkedIn. You know, what it's also done is that it's given us more platforms to pitch for our clients as well. You now get online publications, and you now get those credible podcasts as well, where we put our clients on. So it's definitely helped the way in which we communicate. It's broadened the space.
All right. Because you've learned through correspondence for so long, and from that, you have actually created sustenance and stability, for yourself. And I believe as an entrepreneur, you are creating for other people as well, for the people that you employ, because you were talking about you being where you are now because of other people,
Mm, mm.
right? And have, been carrying you with them.
Yeah.
You know, at this time, what guidance would you provide to students that would like to be in the media, that are studying public relations like myself? I mean, I'm done with my degree. I'd like to move forward, but what guidance would you like to give me, in that respect?
Yeah, I would say I decided that the question that I'm going to ask anybody that I interview going forward wants to join Tishala is going to ask them if they read, right? As a communication specialist, whether you are a journalist, a publicist, a marketer, you are a conduit. you are a calabash. You must supposed to be a calabash of information,
Yes.
and you can't be that if you don't absorb information. And information comes from reading newspapers, reading books. It also, readers are also better writers,
Yes. Because
right?
you learn, you always learn new words. You always learn
You
how to.
always learn new words. So readers are better writers. They're better communicators. I don't know if you've heard Donald Trump talk. Donald Trump has like this little vocabulary, like very small. It's bad, it's good, is like, so as communicators, it's an art, and it's an art through words, whether you are communicating in written form, or whether you are communicating through the spoken language, reading. But also, reading, what reading does is that for example, it broadens your knowledge base. It also helps you with your creativity
Mhm.
as well, because you get a lot of ideas from reading different materials. So if you don't enjoy reading the communication, like, don't bother. I don't know what else you can do, but just don't go into the communication space if you don't enjoy. And by reading, it doesn't have to be these thick books that some of us enjoy reading on a Saturday. It can be anything, a magazine, a anything, but just have a love for reading. Secondly, have a hunger to develop yourself. What I've learned is that no matter where you are in life, um, other aspects of your life, if they're not developed, they will affect your profession,
Mhm.
right? If you don't have self-development, it can be spiritual, it can be academic,
Like, oh, mm.
everywhere. All these things fit into your life, so make sure that you develop other aspects of your life as well, that you're constantly developing yourself as well. Yeah, I think for me, those are very important. And networking in the communications field, you deal with people. Networking is very, very important. Something that I struggled with. I'm a hermit, you know, but I've learned that in order to deal with different people from different industries, which is also important in business, but also important in PR, to know people, to socialize with different people. That is very, very important. It's a profession. Communication is a profession of people,
Mm. Mm.
right? There's the bulk of it is the human factor. So you've got to be a person that enjoys working with people, that loves people, and networking. If people are not for you, then also don't go in there, don't pursue it.
From a point of impasse and lacking of understanding. And
Yeah.
back to sorry, let me just Kabelo Motlame says a leader's influence grows when their mind keeps expanding, and reading is like weightlifting for the brain. Great
Yeah.
point. That's
Yeah.
what that's what she said. Thank you, Kabelo, for that comment. That's beautiful. Back to reading, Hanyanfel. I'd like to know, what is it that you enjoy reading? Because I know I enjoy reading a lot of biographies. I
Mhm.
enjoy reading autobiographies. I can tell you about Mariah Carey's life. I can tell you about Whitney Houston's life. I can tell you about Shaka Zulu's life.
Mhm.
I just enjoy the biographies.
Yeah.
What kind of do you enjoy absorbing?
I'd read from fiction to nonfiction. But as I said, biographies and autobiographies have also interested me in these current years of my life, because you kind of want to see how these great people on your path to greatness,
Mm,
you want to see what they experienced, and what they had to um contend with in their upbringing, and their struggles and their wins, and their lessons that culminated into these great people that we've tend to now come and respect. And for me, I've learned quite a lot that even with successful men and women, um we kind of go through the same experiences, childhood experiences and all of that. So that has learned me to say some of the struggles that I'm going through are normal,
Yes.
and it's how I deal with them that can lead me to that path to greatness. So that's what I enjoy. I now also read a lot of business books because I now recognize myself as a businesswoman. So I'm currently reading Diary of a CEO, which is phenomenal.
All right. Now, talking about books, let's say you're writing your own autobiography. Would you write it, actually? Let me ask. Would you write your own autobiography?
I don't know. I'm not there yet.
let's say, let's say hypothetically, you were writing your own book. What major obstacles have you experienced in business would you include in it?
Major obstacles. I think a lot of obstacles that I've had were internal, right?
Take me
They
through
were
there.
they were not obstacles that people put in my way. It took me a lot to believe that this is the role that I was called to be as a businesswoman. It took me a while to see myself there, right? And as soon as I embraced that, I was then able to step into that role confidently. Because if you're not confident in the role, you second guess your decisions, you second guess yourself, and all of that. And the funny thing is, I've always had people who believed in me. I mean, when you have an international client or even a big local client that say, we're signing you on to be our PR company, that means that they're seeing something phenomenal in you. Um, and you are that. But the most important thing is, do you see yourself as that? And the minute you step into that power, you can then start taking actions that align with that power, right? So for me, the lot of the obstacles were not external, they were internal. And yes, there were also these little irritating challenges as well. But the person that I had to overcome was myself, self-doubt and fear.
They call it imposter syndrome.
Yes, yeah.
That's what they call it, imposter syndrome. Okay, so what would you title this book, this hypothetical book?
My life is so dynamic. I would need to ask a couple of people, more especially those that know me well, because I'm quite dynamic. I've got a very, very serious focus side, but I also have a very, very jolly side as well. So yeah, I think I would need, my community to kind of help me
Uh,
to come up with a title, because I think if I had to have a story written about me, I would want all aspects of my life to be written about it, not only my triumphs.
oh.
Yeah.
Now, with you, I'd like to know, in your opinion, what does leadership entail? And how do you separate basically your personality? Because we spoke about mothers being nurturing and all of that a bit earlier. How do and women just in general, not just mothers, but women in general, how do you
Mhm.
separate your not necessarily your femininity, but how do you separate you being a normal person to you being a leader in or at Tashala Communications? When you step into the office, is there a separate hat that you wear, and how do you, navigate between separating yourself from the two?
I don't. I think being a woman leader is an advantage, because at the end of the day, as I said, we spoke about mothers and how special they are. And I think there's also this special gift that women leaders have as opposed to, male leaders. So I use the fact that I'm female and I'm feminine also in the way that I lead. So I don't separate them. It works to an advantage. And, if you read a lot of stories of women led companies, you would find that they've been successful. And at a lot of times when companies were going through a very critical juncture, it's when women were caught on board because there's a special value that they bring because they are women. I think leadership goes with a lot of responsibility. You bear a lot of the shoulder. You carry others, and if you heed to the call, uh, those that's one responsibility that you also have. It means putting others first before you, right? Um, the needs of your team. Secondly, a leader leads by example. I can't expect people to work hard and to strive for excellence. Meanwhile, I'm a lazy boss.
Yeah.
So my team knows I'm the last one to leave. Always the last one to leave. Just because you are in the leadership position does not mean that you are not accountable as well. I'm
Mm.
accountable to my team.
And
On
well, because it's not about a so and so did this. It's about this company did this to me. They promised did not deliver.
Yeah. So I'm accountable to my team as well. In terms of my whereabouts, one team member also always knows where I am and what I'm busy with.
Yeah.
If we have a project and I've been given a task to do, because what we also do is we give each other a task based on our strengths. Then
Yeah.
I would also say to the team, hey, team, this is how far we are, with a task. So, leadership in essence, accountability, setting an example, having the ability to carry others as well. And it has to be a calling. If you don't love the people that you are leading, then you are not a leader. It all, and I think also because I'm a woman leader, I'm able to be empathetic. And
Yes.
and sometimes you do get, we've got that nature and spirit. You do get different kind of employees. There are employees who are just needy, and that's like they are needy. It's like if you are not in the workspace and at home, you could, it's going to be okay. So and I'm able to give them that. And there are those employees that are independent
My
as
time.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the fact that I'm empathetic also, it's very important for me to being a woman in a leadership position is also very important because women professionals go through different challenges as well, and sometimes male leaders don't recognize that the needs of pregnant mothers in the workplace. They need to have job security. No, a woman knowing that when I come back from maternity leave, I will still have a job, even though I've been away for 4 months to nurture my child.
Mm.
And so those certain things, because I'm a woman, I can step into those shoes and say I want to ensure that every woman who is pregnant at work is well taken care of, that while they're on maternity leave they have job security. So it's certain things like that really, where I can't separate my femininity.
Yes.
And yeah.
This speaks to the empathy that you said you have.
Yeah.
Can you please get to Tsepo Dlamini's question? She says he asks, how does Tishala Communications view the public sector, mainly the NGO sector? It is mostly known that NGOs lack public relations practitioners to help boost NGO business. How can PR firms, especially private ones, work with these non-funded NGOs to reach communities?
None. Yeah, it's a very tricky one. So we deal with NGOs, but they're different level of NGOs. The fortunate thing is that the NGOs that we deal with are well funded. But I think what he's asking is a very important question, that if you've got a company that is doing well, there are NGOs or an NGO, maybe an NGO once a year that you can take on pro bono, right? We do work with an NGO, which is a women's rights organization, that we actually charge them a fifth of what we charge other companies, actually a sixth of what we charge other companies, because mostly the work that they do is impactful and advocacy work, and it's very important that those messaging reaches the public. So PR is very important, and I think when a company is empowered, they should at least adopt an NGO.
Okay, with us giving them such this big of a discount or this big of a service cut, are we including this? Should we or should we? Because I don't know. I'm learning from you here. Are we including this somehow as part of our CSI and CSR, our corporate social initiative and responsibility?
I think that could, but to be honest, you can when a company, any company is growing, you first just need to build your reserves, and at that time is money. So it can become CSI, some a form of a CSI project. But I always say to people, um, become a philanthropist or invest in CSI when you can afford the time and
And
the money, because then you can sustain it. Philanthropists are not poor. So that's the truth.
that's
So as when you've got a bit of an overflow, then you can maybe, identify a passion project and say, let's help these guys, even if it's for a month or ad hoc with very, very important campaigns.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Leadership conversation. Temba Zozo says leadership is the capacity to influence others through inspiration generated by a passion, motivated by a vision, birthed by a conviction, produced by a purpose.
Yes. A leader must have purpose, sense of purpose. I can tell you why I'm here on earth.
You
Because
said it. You said
I
it took
found
you a
my
while.
purpose.
Yeah, it took you a while, but then now you are where you were called to be.
It does, but it's in asking the question, why am I here, that helps you to search, right? And
Take that process of searching. How did it happen? And when was it you and when did you have that epiphany that you know what, this is it?
I think it you don't quite so it becomes like a collection of things over time. Um, I've always known, so it mostly starts with talent, right? Um, I've always been an orator. School, speech festival, this, that, So I knew that there's a gift that I had, where when I speak, people listen,
Yes.
right? I then had to ask myself, what is it that I need to communicate to have impact? Because I can use that influence and the gift to swear at people, or to, I don't know, say stuff that is out,
You
or I can use that gift to build, right? And for me, how I realize that purpose, I don't know with other people, I don't want to prescribe, but you can never find your sense of purpose if you're not connected to the source. And for me, the source is Jesus Christ.
hmm
So when I pray and say, guide my footsteps, I remember there was a day during my shift at work, I would have a in between bulletins. I would have a side conversation with a friend, And this friend said, do you realize that you are on such a powerful platform? And I think when you're doing something, you take it for granted. And I went home and I said,
What did
that
she?
no, as in you are on radio every morning and people actually stop to listen to you.
Yes.
So I actually said, you know, that day I actually sat on my bed and I said, I never saw it that way. I think when you've been doing something often enough, you take it for granted. And then I remember praying and I said, let every word that I utter when I'm that platform bring about change, conviction, or some form of change and other. Let me use that voice and that platform that you've given me. Let me use it responsibly, because I now realize that you have given me a voice that commands people to listen. Secondly, you've given me a respectable platform.
Mhm.
Let me use that to build.
Using this mouth that you gave me and this voice that you lent me.
Give, yes, to build, because I can either use that to gossip about people, or I can use that
Build
to
people.
be a force for change, and I choose the latter.
Well said. Well said. Well said. Trevor says, "Wow, great! I must often join these type of conversations. You only find these type of conversations here on Hub Sessions." Yeah, Kabilo is back again. And he says, "Well said, Nomsa. Empathy is the heartbeat of persuasive leadership." And I think this is when we were talking about women being able to go on maternity leave and come back with their job still secured, knowing that they have a salary to even their children. Now, who has had, or what, has had this a big impact on your professional path? I get from what we're talking about now, you saying that you have been called and you have found your purpose in this. We get that the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is one force that has been with you throughout this whole time. That has created a very big impact, because that's where you get your voice to build. That's where you get your mouth to open and build. Now, who else would you say you have it? We spoke about your mother earlier. I'd say you losing her also, that something in you.
Mm.
Uh, Apart from those two, who is it that we did not shine a light on tonight?
Okay, so I think in terms of my mother, she inculcated in me a very strong work ethic. Because when you've got a very strong work ethic, means that you are able to sustain the opportunities that you have. But in terms of the communication and the broadcasting field, Ridi Tlhabi, and I actually remember sending her a message. There is a boldness and a fearlessness that that woman brought to the airwaves when she was still on 702, and how she always challenged our mindsets. That's what I loved about her. And it came from an informed place. And I think that's one person who really helped me find my true voice. And that's why now I don't want to be like any other person. I want to be myself. I don't want to fit into the
Yeah.
mold. And that's why there's one thing that irritates me is when somebody says it's always been done that way. That's the most boring statement you can. It can be changed, it can be improved.
As it should, because at some point it gets boring. At some point it loses
Yes.
the need to be viewed, the need to be listened to, the
Yeah.
need to be consumed.
Yeah, and that's also one thing that excites me about having mostly a team of people who are younger than me, is that they come up with such fresh ideas. The
Creativity.
outlook is different, and that excites me. I've got a 22-year-old on my team, and I remember driving back from a client shoot. And the conversations, like, she reinvigorated me. She took me back to 20 years ago, and that's just exciting, of having people who think differently from you, having that generational mix. It's beautiful.
It does, because now I think this creativity part is speaking to um, my next question of now, how do you manage a communication company's commercial operations while maintaining creativity? So now we've established that there's the age factor between you and a 20-something-year-old that
Mm.
brings fresh ideas. Now I believe that that's the creativity part. How do you maintain operations and make sure that it still speaks to creativity, and that makes it does make that makes your company sustainable?
Yeah, it's a very tough balance, because in a big company, the CEO takes care of the strategy and business development. Now, having running a small agency means that you have to dabble between the two. Inspiring your team, giving them direction, while at the same time sometimes I have to step in and service clients as well. So it becomes it becomes a quite uh, balancing act, and it just takes a lot of self motivation.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I Now, how have your morals and work ethic been influenced by your upbringing in a teaching family now, on a more professional level?
Yeah, yeah. My parents were very, very professional. I don't remember a day where my mother or my dad said, you know, they don't feel like going to work, or I have a babalas today, I'm not going to work. They were passionate about what they're doing. They even gave of themselves, outside of their working hours, to their students and all of that. So there were always other children at home who either needed extra classes and all of that. I think they inculcated me with that hard work pays off, that you've got to be passionate about what you're doing, and also just be responsible with the opportunity that you've been given. So they've been my greatest teachers when it comes to great work ethic.
I hear you. I feel like we've been talking. I feel like let's get to our conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
I can let you go because it's getting late.
Yeah.
What do you think the future holds for Tishala Communications?
Oh, amazing things.
I
Amazing
love
things.
it.
In fact, at first we defined ourselves as a boutique PR agency. I don't want to define ourselves as that as well. We already service international clients. I actually want us to start broadening our footprint. I see myself and the team setting up, offices in other parts of the continent. I see us also just in terms of our client offering, just broadening our horizon. And I remember having a conversation with one of my team members. I think it was as early as yesterday, that we actually haven't tapped into our fullest potential, and we've got such huge potential.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. Lastly, what message would you like to convey to our audience? I mean, they've been interacting with us, and some have been viewing and coming in and leaving. But lastly, what message would you like to give them, particularly the younger people who are watching,
Yes.
like to establish themselves in the media? I get that spoke on reading is very important. They should continue to read, or they should start reading, and also they should start networking as well. Those
Yeah.
are the two most important things. Is there something that you must have missed, or would you like to just what what we have spoken on already?
I know it sounds too cliche, but believing in yourself and your ability, and that you were brought onto this world to make a meaningful contribution. That sense of self belief goes a long way, because you step into each day with purpose. You step into each day knowing that what I bring to the world is unique from everybody else. So self belief. And yes, we can be inspired by others, but we don't have to strive to be others because you were called to be you. So step into your power with that confidence as well.
Also, I feel like losing, trying to be someone else, that's when you lose yourself, and then that's
Yeah,
where you purpose of having even walked this earth.
exactly. Exactly.
I hear you. Thank you very much for your time. I mean, I've learned so much today.
Thank you so much for granting me the platform. I appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. To everyone that has been watching, thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you to Ms. Nomsamdluli from Tishala Communications and her team for facilitating and making sure that she's present today. You're so beautiful and you're very knowledgeable. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Much appreciated. Bye.
But so, are you open over the weekends? I'd like to maybe come in through, maybe do some shadow work.
Weekends we are closed, but if you maybe do you study part time? I mean, do you study full time? Maybe on holidays you can come and jab shadow.
I can do that. We can.
Yeah, rather do that during holiday weekends. We close weekends. Just hear me doing a business admin. But I think it's nice when the team is here and that you can interact with them.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have a best day.
You
Drink
too.
tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
This was so enjoyable. This was so enjoyable. My heavens. Okay, so now how do I finish this? Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you very much for being here. My heavens, we've been shining. Goodbye until next time. God bless and get your money, honey.